All right, let's move on to Arizona. This is very, very impactful in terms of the electoral news. So just yesterday, there was major breaking in terms of after the Arizona Supreme Court upheld a Civil War era law, which banned abortion across the board in the entire state. There has been now an intra-GOP fight on whether to try and repeal that law or not. Well, let's put this up there on the screen. Just yesterday, the state Senate introduced a bill to repeal that abortion ban. And by the way, by repeal, I just mean adding exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. But the House actually blocked the effort to do so, showing that the House Republican leadership, quote, shows no signs of relenting, despite pressure from prominent Republicans, including Trump, to toss the ban that many voters, quote, view as extreme and archaic. I think that that's a reasonable way to put it. Well, the House Republican leader, the House Speaker, the House legislature was controlled by the Republicans in Arizona. They just seemed content on throwing this entire election. And it is astounding because this is a position that is not held by even like a majority of the minority, I guess, of the people who are pro-life. And yet that's the current law on the books in a critical battleground state. What's even more astounding to me is how the politicians there are navigating it. So Kari Lake, somebody who's the Arizona Senate candidate, previously on tape saying she was completely fine with the ban. Then after the ban came out, she said, well, yeah, we should have some sort of repeal. We need to come sort of a consensus, but I support exceptions for the life and the mother. Well, here she is just yesterday in an interview in local Arizona media, where now she's changing her tune a little bit. She does support the ban. She says something else, which you'll listen out for, and we'll flag it after we listen. Let's take a listen.
Can you explain your shift on abortion from Civil War law to now no federal ban on abortion? Because I believe that truly that's something that people do want to hear from what we've heard this past week.
Well, first of all, I've never shifted from the no federal ban. You know, if you're my age or older, if you've been on this planet for more than 50 years, Roe v. Wade was the law of the land, even though both sides knew it was unconstitutional. And the Supreme Court struck that down and brought the decision back to the states. So we're going to have 50 different state laws. So we need to find some common sense approach. I'm never going to apologize for wanting to save babies and being pro-life. But I also realize the world that we're living in. Even if we have a restrictive law here, you can go 3 hours that way, 3 hours that way, and you're going to be able to have an abortion. We have to start working the minds and hearts of women.
Yeah, one of the ways to win over the minds and hearts of women, Krystal, is to say, yeah, I know in our state, the state that you live in, and that you pay taxes and that you're voting, I know that's really tough. And that's why it's okay that you have to get into a car and you can drive 3 hours that way or 3 hours that way. Also, depending on where you live in Arizona, it may be several hours. And also, you may have to get on a plane, so it's actually gonna cost you some money as opposed to being able to pursue what you wanna do in your own home state. That sounds really comforting to a lot of the voters who are concerned about this. What are these people? Are they living in an alternative reality?
Right.
What is happening here?
They are.
Am I losing my mind here?
Yeah. So the line is basically, oh, it's no big deal because you can just like go over state lines and still do the same thing. She's framing it in terms of like that's a bad thing, but the subtext here is like, yeah, don't freak out because you know there are other states around that aren't using 1864 laws passed by settler pedophiles that you can avail yourself of the rights that you previously enjoyed in our state. You know, just to help people understand why the Republicans in the House in Arizona may have made what seems on its face to be this sort of like politically insane decision of making sure that this law stays as it is on the books. And it's because of the power of organized minority groups. And this is what has long driven abortion politics, really. And in particular, you know, it is especially now a minority position to have this effectively absolute ban. But for people that vote on that issue in the Republican Party in particular, they are the ones who support such things. So if you're doing the calculus of like, I don't want to face a Republican primary next time around, if you have a lot of people who are organized that hold this fringe view in terms of the American people, that can end up being a real political threat to you. And, you know, the other thing is you're gonna have to deal with the situation that Kari Lake is dealing with of, wait a second, voters looking at you and going, wait a second, Previously, you said you loved this ban. Previously, you said you believed in, heartbeat bills and fetal personhood and all this stuff. So why the change? Why suddenly is there this incredible moral flip-flop? And listen, to be fair to that position, if you are a person who genuinely believes that abortion is murder, if that's your principled position, then this leave it up to the states and it's cool if they have murder in California and actually I want to allow a little bit more murder here in Arizona because I'm doing this political calculus and it doesn't look good to me. I think it's fair for people who hold that moral position and believed you when you were all in with them when there were no consequences are disgusted with the flip-flop.
No, you should be. Yeah, if you're very pro-life, you should be repulsed also by people who are basically willing to use you as a pawn. And if you're pro-choice, you should just look at this and be like, wow, this is freaking crazy.
Yeah.
Electorally, we already know what's going to happen here. Lo and behold, let's put this up there on the screen. What do we got? A key change in the way that the Arizona Senate race is being rated in terms of which way it's going to go. It has now gone from toss-up to leans Democratic. And in terms of the House rating, same thing. In the Arizona 6th District, leans Republican to toss-up. So safe seat, easy seat, one that you're supposed to be a checkbox, leans Republican. It's Arizona, for God's sake, right? Nope, not anymore. And now, Kari Lake, Kari had all kinds of problems already with Stop the Steal, with abortion, healthcare. We can all go on forever. So her highlight reel was going to be a problem for her no matter what, especially in a state where we've had multiple races now, both presidential and statewide, where Democrats did better than expected. But this is just the gift to Democrats. This is the greatest gift you could ever get. You have one of the most extreme abortion laws in the whole country, and now you got a lady who's used to support it, is on tape, and now is kind of wishy-washy on where things could go. Good luck. Republicans, you're taking some of the best headwinds in a presidential election, and you're just throwing it away on an issue where you're not even going to win in the first place. I've seen somebody actually, I think it was Mike Cernovich who said this. He was like, hey, pro-lifers, I'm not sure if you know this, but there's actually been a net increase in abortion in the United States since Roe versus Wade. So you guys are drawing your red lines and saying you won't vote for Trump and causing all these problems electorally. And not only are you going to cause future electoral losses, you didn't even win the fight, that you allegedly set out to do. So it's just ridiculous all the way around.
Yeah, and just so you know, it's not an accident that these ratings changes come right now. The Cook Political actually pointed specifically to this 1864 abortion ban, and also the fact, by the way, remember, there's likely to be a ballot initiative on the ballot in November that will allow voters to repeal that ban, which is very motivating, obviously, for people who are even remotely on the pro-choice side of the ledger. And also the fact, and this is something we'll have to cover another time, that Republican fundraising is dramatically lagging behind Democratic fundraising. And that's actually not just an Arizona phenomenon, that's almost across the board. And, there could be a lot of reasons for that. I think Donald Trump is a big reason for it. He is just sucked dry the Republican donor base. There's also a report that he's now demanding any Republican candidate that uses his name in a fundraising pitch, he's demanding that they give him a 5% kickback of whatever they raise off of it. So, he's sort of single-handedly undermining Republicans' ability to fundraise. And I also think that abortion plays into the fundraising piece too here, because it's a very motivating issue for Democratic-aligned individuals and specifically donors. And Republicans are kind of demoralized around the way that all of this has unfolded. Just to show you too, this Data for Progress poll demonstrating just how unpopular the Arizona abortion ban actually is. They asked the question, let's put this up on the screen. So 66% of voters, 2/3 of the country, disapprove of the Arizona Supreme Court's near total ban on abortion. That includes 82% of Democrats, 66% of independents, and Republicans even basically split 50-50. 49% of Republicans even disapprove of that ban. So just to give you a sense of just how toxic this particular iteration of abortion bans really is. And, Republicans can't really run away from it at this point because they've spent so many years establishing themselves in this very hardline position. that you can't try to pull a Kari Lake and just, you know, do a 180 and pretend like you didn't say the things that you said in the past, because we can all roll the tape.
You were exactly right, Krystal. And just by the way, you know, in terms of more messaging from Republicans, which is not exactly helpful, here we have Senator Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, where she says that Griswold versus Connecticut is constitutionally unsound. Griswold, for those of you who don't know, is the one that legalized birth control. Let's take a listen.
Constitutionally unsound rulings like Griswold versus Connecticut, Kelo versus City of New London, and NFIB versus Sebelius confused Tennesseans and left Congress wondering who gave the court permission to bypass our system of checks and balances.
Okay, good luck. Now we're against the case that legalized birth control. So, all right. Unless you guys are literally going to pass a law almost immediately after said gets repealed, I don't even know.
Yeah, and how's that gone with IVF?
I know. Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
I mean, Republicans are blocking at the federal level.
Yeah. There's at least a pro-life case for IVF, right?
Absolutely. More babies.
This is the opposite.
If your family values, you want more babies, like IVF is an important part of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can see, you know, even when they recognize this is politically disastrous, like in Arizona, Kari Lake trying to backtrack, Donald Trump, like, oh, of course we support IVF, et cetera, et cetera. When it comes down to how they actually vote, they just can't do it because there's still so much influence from the very organized pro-life crowd, which has been able over decades. I mean, listen, you have to give it to them in terms of their stick-to-itiveness, in terms of their determination, in terms of like the savvy tactics that they used, but to basically force a minority fringe position on the entire country. And the part that they failed on, though, was having any sort of plan for what happens next. So in that way, they really are the dog that caught the car with regards to Roe being overturned and the Dobbs decision. And it's a wild, wild west out there. That's all I'll say.
Exactly right.
Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.